What's up, everybody? It's Trifecta J, and back again with the South Dakota Dynasty. Today we have a little bit of a season update and recruiting update. The recruiting part is going to make up most of this episode, but so far on the season, the Coyotes are 0-3. We can see they've struggled a lot so far. The Coyotes are currently 0-3 on the season. It's been a tough start to the season as they played some stiff competition, one of the better teams of the MAC, and then two Power 5 teams. They lost to Buffalo by 24 points, Minnesota by 20, and then West Virginia by 31. Our defense has not been able to slow down any rushing attack or offense whatsoever so far, and our offense has not been able to keep up with some very talented offenses. So far on the season, Jared Miller to some extent has taken a step back, as he's completing more of his passes, but only 161 yards per game, which is less than he even had in season 1. So it's been a worse year for him, but we have done a much better job this year running the football, as Pierce Libby has been leading us. He played very well in the last two games. He's over doubled his yards per game so far that he had in season 2, averaging 6.6 yards per carry. Still no touchdowns for him though. Then Jalen Page, he's played very well. He played very well in the first game. His yards per carry has gone up, and his yards per game has also gone up, and he has one rushing touchdown for us. Dontavius Knight has made somewhat of an immediate impact for us as an offensive playmaker. He's averaging about 4.6 yards per carry with a touchdown. As a receiver, he hasn't done quite as much as I thought. He has 5 catches, but for -1 yards. So he hasn't been able to do much after the catch, which is not what I was really expecting from him. Our receivers are currently led by Cordell Hicks by far. He has double the receptions of the person in second place and more yards than almost all the other people combined. He's averaging 18.3 yards per carry. Like we all know, we are 0-3 currently, and we will be getting into Mountain West play after this bye week. So we play Fresno State, then Utah State, go on the road for South Dakota State, return home for Air Force Boise State. Then we finish off the season against Colorado State, North Dakota State, and North Dakota all at home. We'll get an early look at the top 25 and see where everything currently stands. So Clemson and Alabama are splitting votes for the number 1 spot. Arizona and USC from the Pac-12 are number 3 and 4. Cincinnati still in the top 10 after a very strong season last year, finishing number 2 overall. And then Oklahoma, Florida State, Auburn, Texas, and LSU are the other teams in the top 10. But now we will get into the actual recruiting portion of this episode. So we have 21 players moving on. So it's going to be very important that we get quality recruits to replace them, but we're also going to need to get a lot of quantity. We have 12 players on offense graduating, and then 9 on defense, and then 18 graduating next year. So a lot of turnover in these next 2 years. So like I said, it'll be very important to establish ourselves in the recruiting trail and get some talented players to replace them. Like always, we have a very tight-knit area that we're recruiting from. We have 4 players from South Dakota, 6 from North Dakota, then a number from Minnesota, 7. Iowa, it is around 4. And then Nebraska, we have 6 players from there. So we currently have 6 pipeline states, actually. We are at potential of losing all of them, but 2. We'll keep North Dakota and South Dakota no matter what, but Iowa, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Minnesota are all at risk of losing those pipeline states unless we're able to get a number of prospects from there. We do have a lot of targets from those states, so hopefully we can retain those. So now we're actually going to get a look at our recruiting prospects. The number 1 player on our board is Jawan Hooper. He's 5'9", 190 out of Nebraska. We have a good lead for him, and he is an elite athlete at the cornerback position, has extremely good coverage ratings. He can tackle pretty well. He does almost everything well and would be an immediate number 1 corner for us most likely. We do have Xavier Warner graduating, so we need someone to come in and be able to replace him, along with Sean Saldana also graduating. The second player on our board is Deron Covington. We've seen how much this team has struggled, especially this year. We've seen it through the first 3 years, but this year it seems to be taken to another level, the amount that we're struggling at stopping the run. So we went out, found a big nose tackle He's from St. Paul, Minnesota, and so he's not super quick, but his first step is definitely decent. He's incredibly strong, an elite block shedder coming out of high school, so should be an immediate impact in our ability to stop the run, and has the potential to develop into a good pass rusher as well with decent power moves. Next up, we have Christopher Smith, as he is a fullback, and he is from Wyoming. He's not the biggest guy at only 6'1", but is 240, and he's looking for playing time. And with Dorian Bolden being a junior, he'll be able to come in redshirt and then be our starting fullback, even though we don't utilize a fullback a whole lot. He is decent in all of the areas pretty much. He's an okay athlete, decent blocking, decent trucking, so should be able to sit for 1 year and develop and be an impact player for when we do utilize a fullback, and maybe make it so that we do use a fullback more often. Next up, we have Tyler Lanning. He is a wide receiver from Minnesota. We're in somewhat of a competition with Minnesota, but we do have a decent lead for him. He is 5'11", 188. He has decent speed, and all around though has a long way to go in terms of his catching ratings. So far out of Cooper Price, we haven't recruited anyone at wide receiver who has solid hands or route running or anything like that, and he's another guy who's going to need some time to develop. Luckily, we do have a couple of players who will be around next year, but with Nate Went, Deion Gilbert, and Cooper Price all graduating this year, and then Deontay Knox graduating the year after that, we'll need some of these players to develop quickly so they can make an instant impact for us early on in their career. Next up, we have Christian Jackson. We're currently losing to Iowa State. It looks like he may want to stay home. We're putting a lot of points into him, though, and trying to catch up in this race. We should have a visit with him coming up pretty soon. Like I said, he is 5'10", 202. He's not a superb athlete, but his coverage ratings are decent, and he doesn't have great size either, but just is another guy who, good coverage ratings, better than a lot of the guys that we recruit in this past recruiting class outside of Deion Kendrick, and with time maybe can get a little faster or just be a zone cover corner. After that, we have Keandre Ibrahim. He is 6'3", 316 out of Nebraska. He's looking for playing time, and it's a very tight battle with Idaho. He's a guy that I really want to get, would be super valuable for us, as he's a good athlete with great acceleration, all around pretty balanced in terms of his blocking ratings, and is decently strong as well. Could be forced to play early on in his career with the graduations we have along the offensive line coming up, but I see him as a guy who can redshirt and develop and wait behind both Bo Weaver and Noah Butler. Next up, we have a guard. It's Joseph Pitlick. He is a 62 overall. He's 6'3", 322, so a big guy from Idaho. Once again, he's a pretty good athlete. His impact blocking isn't quite where I would want it, but is another guy who potentially could play early in his career, but most likely will redshirt and have time to develop. After that, we have Devin West graduating this year, so we went out and found Alec Hennessy. He is 5'11", 202 from Nebraska. Size isn't super important for a kicker, but he is incredibly accurate. His kick power isn't super great, but right now I believe he would be an upgrade already over Devin West. So it would be a great get if we were able to secure him and get the commitment from him. Next up, we have a couple of running backs. First up is Christian Smith-Brown from North Dakota. He's a smaller back at 5'9", 188, and he has good speed. That's one of the things that really stood out to me, is the potential to develop into an elusive back as well. But he's even faster than Rakeem Boyd was coming out of high school, and I feel like with time he could develop and be a great speed back, and also a very good complement to Noah Whiting, as Whiting is not the same type of back. He's 5'10", 202, so definitely bigger than Christian Smith-Brown. He's from Nebraska. Like I said, we have a lot of players from Nebraska on this board. He isn't as fast as Smith-Brown, but is a little quicker. He's stronger and could be a more of a power back and be a nice complement to Christian Smith-Brown, and they could be the future of this backfield once we have some other guys move on. After that, we have Clinton Ginter. He is from Iowa. He's 6'3", 291, so maybe not quite as big as I want, but he does have time to develop and get bigger. He's also not the athlete I would necessarily want, but he may be able to fit in as a center, as a position where his lack of speed won't be super hurtful for us. But once again, a very balanced blocker. That's something that is definitely true this year. In the first few recruiting classes, it seemed like a lot of them were focused on run blocking outside of really Jamie Landry. But right now we have two guys that we've seen so far that are both very balanced in their blocking ratings. After that, we have Logan McGee. He is another player from Nebraska. Not much of a competition for him as we're leading Rice and SMU. He's 6'2", 239, so would provide very nice size at the linebacker position. He's not quite the athlete I would want, but he does remind me of Jackson Harvey in that he's a little slower than you would want, but everywhere else is very good. He can rush the passer, he can cover, he's strong, he can hit, and he can pretty much do it all. He just may not have that elite speed and be the athletic freak that you may want as a linebacker. After that, we have David LeClaire. He is a hometown kid from South Dakota, and he is a big body, 6'5", 331, trying to get more size for this offensive line, and he definitely adds to it. He's decently strong, a decent athlete, and has a good bit of a ways to go in terms of his blocking ratings. But with the size he has and the initial ratings, he definitely will be a guy who will redshirt, have time to develop, and potentially be a starter later on in his career. We have 3 quarterbacks graduating next year. J.R. Miller, Ezekiel Wood, and Corbin Brady will all be moving on. We got Jalen Tate, who I see as the quarterback of the future, but it's important that he has a backup and someone to compete with him. So we went out and found a junior college player, Weston Carver from Minnesota. He's a big body. It's 6'4", 223, and he is a good athlete. He has the ability to make you miss and has excellent break tackling. His passing ratings are not really where you would want them, but as a backup quarterback who could potentially come in and run the option like Jalen Tate can, he definitely fits in that role. Next up, we have a guy with a very familiar name. It's Ethan Miller. He is actually the brother of J.R. Miller. He's 6', 180, out of South Dakota. We're beating Maryland currently for him, but still in the early stages of this battle. He has very good speed compared to the players currently on our roster, a nice spin move, but like most of the receivers that we've gotten so far, he needs time to develop, and some of these players may not have time with, I believe, 5 wide receivers graduating in the next 2 years. We're going to need some players to step up. We have Jacoby Patton on the roster, who I feel could be a definite impact player for us with just a little bit more time. And then Phoenix McDonald, who has some nice speed but needs time to develop as well. After that, we have the final player that we have on our board currently. So a large board currently, and a lot of players that we're targeting, hoping to get some commits relatively soon. Right now, this player is Daniel Woods. He's 6'5", 246, and he's a tight end from North Dakota. We're in a pretty tight battle with North Dakota State, and Boise State. So we're probably going to need to put a good bit of points into him. He's not the highest overall, but we do have 2 tight ends graduating this year, and then Brock Peterson will be moving on. So we need someone who can develop and play alongside Cordell Hicks and eventually replace him. Woods is not the athlete that Hicks is, but he's definitely quicker than Tate Wagner is and just has a long way to go. He has good route running, but outside of that, his other catching ratings definitely need time to develop, and he also needs time to develop as a blocker. But so now that we have seen our board, it's a lot of players that I'm very excited about. I think this could shape up to be one of our best recruiting classes that we have. Currently with those 15 players, we have 5 spots left, and I definitely have some players on the board that I think could be the players who could fill out the rest of the class, but we'll have to see how the season progresses and the other battles progress and see which commits we can get along that. But now moving through our bye week, we get back to the actual football being played this year, as our next game will be against Fresno State on the road. We lost by 1 to them last year, a game in which Devin West missed a field goal attempt at the end of the game by about 3 inches, and we were that close to getting our 3rd win, or would have been our 3rd win if we beat North Dakota. So Fresno State is one of the more talented teams in the Mountain West Conference. They have a ton of talent on offense. So we'll have to see how our team is able to compete with them. Last year, their offense played well against us, and Jake Hainer returns. They have Mims at running back and talent in the receiving core. So we're going to need this team to play a lot better than they have in the first 3 games. Our offense and defense are both going to need to contribute, and our defense needs to force negative plays, slow down rushing attacks, as they are giving up 330 yards currently on the ground, which is just unacceptable. But I hope you did enjoy this episode and the look at our recruiting board and the players of the future and future potential Coyotes. If you did enjoy, please leave a like down below. Comment down below what players currently on our board are you most excited for? Who do you think can make an instant impact for us? Or players that you think with a little bit of development could be superstars for us as well. But like I said, I hope you did enjoy. I hope you have a great rest of your day.